By the autumn of 1944, the Wehrmacht had hemorrhaged millions of men following the catastrophic collapse of Army Group Center in the east and the Falaise Pocket in the west. The German military was no longer just bleeding, it was facing systemic annihilation. In response, on September 25th, Hitler signed a decree that bypassed the traditional military command entirely, creating the Volkssturm. But they deliberately waited until October 18th, the anniversary of the 1813 Battle of Leipzig, to announce it, attempting to invoke the romanticized Prussian history of a people's militia rising up to defend the fatherland. In reality, this was a cynical political maneuver. Control of this new force wasn't given to army generals, but to Martin Bormann and the regional Nazi party bosses, the Gauleiters. It was a phantom army built on ideology, not military logistics. We often generalize the Volkssturm as a chaotic mob of old men and boys, but the reality was a rigidly bureaucratic, four-tier system called the Aufgebote, or levies. Levies 1 and 2 aggressively stripped the factories and civil services of men aged 16 to 60, who had previously been protected because they were deemed essential to war production. Levy 3 specifically targeted the Hitler Youth, absorbing teenagers who had spent their entire formative years fully indoctrinated by the state. And Levy 4 was the true bottom of the barrel. Men over 60, those with severe medical disabilities, and veterans of the First World War. You literally had men who had survived the gas attacks at Ypres and the meat grinder of Verdun in 1916, now digging anti-tank ditches outside Berlin. Equipping this militia was an absolute logistical nightmare. Heinrich Himmler's replacement army was supposed to provide the weapons, but the regular army couldn't even supply its own frontline panzer grenadiers, let alone 1 million drafted civilians. Because of this, the Volkssturm fought in whatever they happened to own: postmen's uniforms, train conductor jackets, or threadbare civilian winter coats. The only thing separating them from being legally classified as Franc-Tireur, illegal combatants, was a cheap printed armband reading Deutsche Volkssturm Wehrmacht. Without that single piece of fabric, advancing Allied and Soviet troops had every right under the Hague Convention to execute them on the spot as armed partisans. Their arsenal was a museum curator's worst nightmare. Because the Wehrmacht hoarded the standard Kar 98K rifles and MG 42 machine guns, the Volkssturm was handed a hodgepodge of captured foreign inventory. A single localized company might be issued Italian Carcanos, obsolete French Liebel rifles from the 1890s, and captured Soviet Mosin Nagants, making uniform ammunition supply physically impossible. To compensate, German industry began churning out primitive Waffen, crude stamped sheet metal weapons like the MP-3008 submachine gun. But their defining weapon was the Panzerfaust. It was an incredibly lethal shaped charge, but it had a maximum effective range of roughly 30 meters. It required a terrified civilian to wait until a Soviet T-34 or an American Sherman was practically close enough to touch before breaking cover to fire. In combat, their effectiveness was wildly inconsistent and largely dictated by geography. In the West, facing the Americans and the British, many Volkssturm units surrendered at the first available opportunity, throwing their rifles and armbands into the ditch the moment the local party officials fled. But in the East, fueled by Goebbels' relentless propaganda and a very genuine terror of Soviet retaliation, they often fought with a grim, suicidal fanaticism. During the brutal siege of Breslau and the final apocalyptic street fighting in Berlin, Hitler Youth detachments and elderly veterans actually inflicted agonizingly high casualties on Soviet armor columns. It wasn't a tactical defense, it was a deliberate bloodletting.